Xiaoboy siyang takakakban, tulad Justin Adolce, Jaume Haitoy, Hendang Crutruk, San Miguel Calabanga, Camarines Sur. Now, that we proceed the last comparative analysis, which is the Philippines and Vietnam. Introduction. This comparative analysis are comparing two education systems in ASEAN, the Philippines and Vietnam, examining the educational structures, practices, and aspects, understanding the strengths and weaknesses, and insight can use for improvement. Structure of education. Level of education. In the Philippines, elementary, secondary, K-12, and tertiary higher education. Governed by DepEd Elementary and Secondary and CHED Tertiary. K-12 includes primary, secondary, and senior high school. Tertiary includes undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral degree. In the education system in the Philippines is divided into three levels, which is the elementary, the secondary, and the secondary is the K-12. The tertiary education is the higher education. And secondary education in K-12 includes the junior high school and the senior high school, divided into primary education, secondary education, senior high school education. In primary education, this is grade 1 to grade 6. And the secondary education is to grade 7 to grade 10. And senior high school naman is grade 11 to grade 12. The K-12 program is designed to improve the quality of education and prepare students for higher education or employment. In tertiary education, after senior high school, tertiary education consists of undergraduate, the bachelor degree, postgraduate, which is the master's degree, and doctoral degree, the PhD, and other doctoral programs. The agency that oversees tertiary education is the Commission of Higher Education or CHED. In Vietnam naman, preschool, primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, and higher education. The structure of education consists into 5 stages. The preschool, primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, and higher education. Sa preschool, preschool age, and primary is the elementary level, and the lower secondary is the equivalent to junior high. Sa upper secondary is the equivalent to senior high. And the higher education is the college or university. Ang K-12 na tinatawag natin sa Pilipinas is lower and upper secondary ang tawag sa Vietnam. Next is governed by the Ministry of Education and Training, MOET. The MOT is the Ministry Education and Training. In this solely agency, the oversees all level of education in Vietnam. Next is higher education includes undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate programs. In this, higher education consists of undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate. Sa undergraduate is a bachelor degree, and sa graduate naman is the master's level. And sa postgraduate programs this is including the doctoral programs. Mandatory years of schooling. In the Philippines, compulsory from kindergarten to grade 12. Education in kindergarten to grade 12 in the Philippines is a mandatory for all students. This is a part of country's K-12 program, aimed to preparing the youth for college, work, and entrepreneurship. And next is kindergarten is mandatory for all 5-year-old children. Kindergarten in the Philippines must be attended by all 5-year-old children. This means they cannot enter in grade 1 without going through kindergarten first. Next is NSTP and Rizal Law are mandatory subjects in tertiary education. In this part naman is at the college or tertiary level, 2 subjects are required. That what I said is the NSTP and the Rizal Law. In NSTP, this NSTP or National Service Training Program is help develop youth with a sense of civic responsibility. And to Rizal Law naman is, in the Rizal Law, teaches the life and works of Dr. Jose Rizal is a part of national identity. Kaya kinakailangan na pag-aralan natin ang ito, the Rizal Law. So walang gagraduate or walang nag-graduate ng students na hindi na pag-aaralan ang life or the Rizal Law. Next is from the mandatory years of schooling in Vietnam is compulsory from primary school, 6 to 11 years old. In this part naman, education in Vietnam is only mandatory starting from primary school, which cover age 6 to 11 years old only. Lower secondary or primary is not yet required. So, yun yung sa Vietnam. And preschool is becoming increasingly popular but not mandatory. So, sinasabi dito na preschool or pre-elementary education is not yet mandatory. Hindi gaya sa Pilipinas. Ngunit, parami ang batang pumapasok dito. Mga iilan sa kanila, kapag nagkapag-graduate ka na ng primary school, hindi ka na re-required para sa lower secondary or preschool. Hindi na nila nire-required. Pero may iilan pa rin na pinapatuloy yung pagpasok nila sa preschool kahit hindi naman required sa kanila. Therefore, although it is not compulsory, awareness and acceptance of it among parents and the community are growing. So, the Vietnamese education system mandates only 5 years of schooling, especially from age 6 to 11, which corresponds to primary education. Kahit may tinatawag silang lower and upper secondary education, many students continue their education beyond primary school, but it is not required by the law. So, despite the shorter compulsory education period, Vietnam boasts a literacy rate exceeding 90%, indicating effective education practices and community engagement. Yun yung sa Vietnam. Next is presence of alternative learning system. In the Philippines, alternative learning system or ALS program, this is our alternative mode of education outside the formal school system. It is to provide opportunities for those who did not complete the regular education system, and caters to out-of-school youth and adults. So, in this part, ALS is a serve out-of-school youth as well as adults who wish to continue and to complete their education. Include the basic literacy program, accreditation and equivalency program, indigenous people education, and more. So, ALS has various branches. The basic literacy program. And the basic literacy program, first is the basic literacy program. Teachers reading, writing, and numeracy skills for those who are illiterate. And the second is accreditation and equivalency for those who want to obtain certification equivalent to elementary or high school or high school. Third is the indigenous people education, a special education tailored to the culture of indigenous peoples. In Vietnam naman, non-formal education system. So similar to the ALS, in the Philippines, this is an education system that does not follow the conventional school structure but still provides opportunities for learning and offers flexible learning for out-of-school youth and adults. So it provides more flexible schedule for forms of study suitable for those who cannot attend school every day. So ganyan yung sa Vietnam. Ang tinatawag din nila na NFE or non-formal education. So, a special education system for children with disabilities. There are special programs for children with disabilities to address their unique learning needs. Distance learning programs for remote areas. Consideration is also given to remote areas offering online or modular learning to reach students even in a far-flung location. In short, kung mayroon tayong ALS na tinatawag sa Pilipinas, and Vietnam naman is mayroon silang tinatawag na NFE or the non-formal education. Offers flexible learning for those who unable to attend traditional schools, featuring special education for children with disabilities and distance learning for remote areas. So both systems enhance education access to diverse groups. Next is curriculum pedagogy, emphasis on STEM language or vocational education. In the Philippines, STEM track aims to develop problem-solving abilities by teaching students and scientific method of hypothesizing, experimenting, and analyzing. It means this focus on STEM equips students with critical thinking and analytical skills for addressing real-world challenges, fostering innovation, and preparing them for careers in science and technology. Next is English and Filipino in instructions to promote students' comfort and bilingual competence as per Department Order Number 25, Series of 1974. Meaning, the bilingual approach enhance communication skills and cultural understanding, allowing students to engage effectively and diverse environment and improving their global competitiveness. Next is TESDA offers vocational education and training to equip students with workforce skills, meaning by providing practical thinking and skill development, TESDA helps students transition smoothly into the job market and addressing the skills gap and supporting economic growth. For the Vietnam naman, strong emphasis on STEM fields throughout the education system, meaning from the basic education to higher level, Vietnam prioritizes STEM education as a core part of its curriculum, aiming to enhance innovation and development in science and technology. Next is English is mandatory from primary school, meaning this requirement is ensure that all students develop strong communication skills early on, contributing to their global competitiveness and ability to engage in international context. Next is vocational education available at secondary and post-secondary level, meaning then in addition to academic pathways, Vietnam offer the vocational or technical education for students who enter the workforce or gain technical skills immediately after secondary school or college. Next is integration of local culture and history. In the Philippines, integrated into various subjects across all levels, Araling Panlipunan or Social Studies, 21st Century Literature, and more. In this integrated into various subjects across all level is meaning local culture and history are woven into multiple subjects from elementary to secondary education. This integration is not confined to a single subject, but it is a part of a broader learning experience that includes language, social studies, and the arts. For instance, subjects like Araling Panlipunan or Social Studies serve as a foundation pillar of understanding the country's history. And this for Araling Panlipunan and 21st century naman is in senior high school, subjects such as 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world engage students appreciating contemporary literature, exploring the various dimension, genres, and cultural contexts. Additionally, the subject komunikasyon at pananaliksik sa wikang kulturang Pilipino focuses on the nature and use of the Filipino language in communication, further enriching students' understanding for their cultural heritage. And in Vietnam, emphasized through Vietnamese language and literature, meaning the local culture is prominently highlighted through the teaching of Vietnamese language and literature. This national language serves as a vital tool for students to connect more profoundly with their history and tradition, allowing them to appreciate and nuances of their cultural heritage. The curriculum includes an enriched array of traditional stories, poems, and significant historical events. This integration fosters pride and understanding of Vietnam cultural heritage, enabling students to explore the country arts, music, and traditional practices. And next is traditional stories, poem, and historical events incorporated. Next is use of technology and innovative teaching methods. In the Philippines, the DepEd computerization program equips public schools with essential ICT resources, including computers and internet access, enhancing learning environment. Meaning the initiative is crucial in modernizing education in the Philippines. It provides students and teachers with necessary tools to engage with digital content. By improving access to technology, the program helps bridge the digital divide, ensuring that all students, including those in remote areas, can benefit modern educational resources. Next is the DepEd RISE program integrate digital literacy into the K-12 curriculum, equipping students with the essential skills for the digital age. So, meaning then is this program focuses on enhancing students' digital literacy through updated curricula that include productivity tools, programming, and multimedia concepts. By teaching these skills, the program prepares students for future academic and career opportunities, ensuring they are equipped to drive the technology-driven the world. For the Vietnam naman, government investments in infrastructure ensure schools have internet access and computer labs, improving technology availability. These investments are vital, creating unequitable educational landscape, as they provide that all students with access to digital tools and resources. By enhancing the technology availability, the government is working to ensure that all students can engage with modern learning materials, so regardless of their geographic location. Next is integration of digital tools creates engaging and personalized learning experiences supported by teacher training programs, meaning this approach revolutionizes traditional teaching methods by making learning more interactive and tailored to individual students' needs. Teacher training programs empower educators to effectively utilize technology in their classrooms, leading to improved student engagement and learning outcomes. This shift not only to enhance the quality of education but also democratize access to learning and opportunities for all students. For the funding and resources, this will be continue of Giselle Barba.
Cynthia Moy Goita Toyla Giselle C. Barba 22 Toy Songtay San Miguel Calabanga Camarines Sur Toyla Pong 22 Bipan Tiksusan Hitong Giak Go Philippines Va Vietnam By Go Chong Tahoy Dat Daw. Good day everyone. I'm Giselle C. Barba, 22 years old, living in San Miguel, Calabanga, Camarines Sur. I am the next reporter about the comparative analysis of the education system between Philippines and Vietnam. Now let's get started. Funding and resources. I'll be giving a brief overview of government spending on education in the Philippines and Vietnam in 2020. The key information shows the percentage of each country's gross domestic product that was allocated to education. In 2020, the Philippines government allocated 3.7348% of its gross domestic product to education. The GDP represents the total value of goods and services produced within the country. So this percentage shows how much of the national economic output was directed toward education. In Vietnam, Vietnam's government dedicated a slightly higher percentage of its GDP to education in 2020. 4.1116%, this shows a higher proportion of Vietnam's national economic output was invested in education compared to the Philippines. In short, this comparison demonstrates that in 2020, Vietnam invested a relatively larger portion of its national economic output to education than the Philippines did. This doesn't necessarily mean Vietnam's education system is better, but it indicates a higher level of national spending on education as a portion of its national economy. Next, we'll be comparing the availability of school facilities and teaching materials in the Philippines and Vietnam. The data highlights significant difference in the state of educational resources in both countries. In Philippines, significant classroom overcrowding, 50% senior high, 32% primary overcrowded. This means that a large portion of primary and secondary school in the Philippines are severely overcrowded with far too many students per classroom. This negatively affects learning as teachers struggle to give individual attention and students lack space to comfortably learn. So next is widespread shortage of basic facilities, desks, chair, etc., hindering K-12 implementation. Many Philippine schools lack basic necessities like desks and chairs. This lack of essential resources make it difficult to effectively implement the K-12 education program. Students may have to share desks of overseat on the floor, disrupting their learning experience. Insufficient textbooks and learning materials in many public schools. So many public schools in the Philippines do not have enough textbook and learning materials for all students. This limits access to vital educational resources. leading to uneven learning experiences and potentially impacting academic performance. In Vietnam, government projects underway to replace dilapidated classroom and upgraded equipment. The Vietnamese government is actively working on upgrading its school infrastructure, replacing old and damaged classrooms with newer facilities, and improving availability equipment. This indicates a commitment to a better learning environment. Next is 77.1% of classrooms meet a strong structural standard, but only 68% of equipment meets teaching needs. While most classrooms in Vietnam are structurally sound, there's a significant gap in the availability of up-to-date and adequate teaching equipment. This suggests that further investment is needed to fully equip the learning space in school. Next is shortages of appropriate teaching materials, especially for students with disabilities. Similar to the Philippines, Vietnam faces shortages of teaching materials, but this is particularly acute for students with disabilities. Inclusive learning environments require specialized teaching materials that are often lacking. Next is planned investment in over 16,000 new classrooms and thousands of computers by 2025. Vietnam has ambitious plans to significantly expand educational infrastructure by investing in numerous new classrooms and modernizing schools with computers. This shows a clear commitment to improving the learning environment. In conclusion, while both countries face challenges, the nature of these challenges differs. The Philippines struggle with widespread shortage of basic resources and severe overcrowding, whereas in Vietnam, the gap lies mostly in equipping of learning centers. Vietnam seems to be taking proactive steps to improving its educational infrastructure, while the Philippines faces a greater need of immediate investment in basic resources. Next, we'll be looking at teacher-student ratios in the Philippines and Vietnam. These ratios show the number of students per teacher, giving an indication of the level of individual attention student might receive. In Philippines, preschool 1.27 as of 2017. This means there were an average 27 preschool students for every teachers in 2017. This is relatively high ratio, suggesting limited individual attention for younger learners. In elementary, 1.31 as of 2018. An average of 31 elementary students per teacher in 2018 shows a similar trend of larger class sizes and potentially less individuals instruction. In junior high school, 1.36 as of 2018. Within an average 36 students per teacher, junior high classes in the Philippines were even larger than elementary classes. This further reduces opportunities for individual attention from teachers. In senior high school, 1.31 as of 2018. Similar to elementary school, senior high school classes in 2018 had an average of 31 students per teacher. In Vietnam, primary 1.24.1 as of 2020 to 2022. The primary school ratios in Vietnam is slightly lower than the preschool ratio in the Philippines, indicating smaller class sizes and potentially more individualized attention in primary education. In lower secondary, 115.75 as of 2012. At the lower secondary level, Vietnam had a significantly lower student-teacher ratio than the Philippines. with an average of just over 15 students per teacher. This suggests more focus in instruction and better opportunities for individual interaction. Next is upper secondary, 122.3 as of 2023 to 2024. While still favorable compared to the Philippines, the ratio increases slightly at the upper secondary level of Vietnam, suggesting slightly larger class sizes. Next is higher education, approximately 128 as of 2009 rather. The ratio in Philippine education in Vietnam is similar to the elementary and senior high school levels in the Philippines, showing a substantial contrast across the different education levels. So, the data reveals that the Philippines consistently faces higher student-teacher ratios across all education levels compared to Vietnam. This means that in the Philippines, teachers typically faces larger classes, limiting individualized attention and potentially impacting teacher effectiveness. While data for Vietnam also shows ratio variations at different educational levels, it remains significantly lower than the Philippines across the board. Smaller class size in Vietnam may contribute to better student outcomes. Next, we'll be comparing teacher qualification requirements in the Philippines and Vietnam. The data shows difference in the minimum educational standard and professional development opportunities for teachers in both countries. In Philippines, first, minimum requirement, bachelor degree in elementary education for elementary teachers or secondary education for secondary teachers. To teach in Philippine schools, a minimum of a bachelor degree in the relevant field of education is required. This ensures that teachers have a foundation of pedagogical knowledge. Second, licensure must pass the licensure examination for teachers or LET to become as licensed professional teachers. All teachers in the Philippines must pass a standardized licensure exam to be legally allowed to teach. The LET tests their competence and knowledge of teaching methods and relevant subject matter. Third is professional development. Ongoing professional development is ensuring through various programs of workshop. The Philippine education system emphasizes ongoing teacher training and development through workshop and programs. This helps teachers stay updated with best practices in education and new teaching methodologies. In Vietnam, preschool pedagogical college diploma. Teachers in Vietnamese preschool need a diploma from a pedagogical college. This shows a specialized approach to early childhood education training. Second is primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, bachelor's degree and pedagogy training. For primary, lower secondary, and upper secondary education, a bachelor's degree in pedagogy, the study of teaching, is required. This signifies a higher emphasis on pedagogical education for these levels. Next is higher education. Master degree for lecturers, doctoral degree required for those teaching or instructing master or doctoral thesis. Vietnam sets higher education requirements for higher education teacher. Lecturers need a master degree, and those teachers at the master and doctoral level require doctorate degrees. This ensures a high level of expertise at the university level. Next is vocational education. Qualification follows regulation in the law on vocational education. Specific requirements for vocational education teachers are regulated separately in Vietnam, reflecting the diverse needs of skill-based and technical training. While both countries required a bachelor's degree for many teaching positions, Vietnam's requirement shows a marked increase in educational standards for higher education instruction. Vietnam also demonstrates a greater emphasis on specialized pedagogical training across various levels of education. The Philippine system, though it encourages professional development, may lack the same level of specific pedagogical training required for different educational levels as apart in Vietnam. Next, we'll compare the policies on free education in the Philippines and Vietnam. Both countries aim for broader access, but their approaches differ. In Philippines, tertiary education, RA 10931. Republic Act Number 10931, also known as the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, provides free tuition in state universities and colleges. This aims to expand access to higher education for Filipinos. Next is Basic Education for Learners with Disabilities, RA 11650. This law ensures free basic education for students with disabilities. It focuses specifically on making education accessible and inclusive for students with special needs, providing them with the support they require. In Vietnam, first is constitutional guarantee. Vietnam Constitution guarantees the right to education. This signifies that education is fundamental right enshrined in the country's most basic legal framework. Second is targeted programs. Vietnam implements specific programs designed to address the educational needs of particular groups. This could include programs that support students from disadvantaged backgrounds or those in remote areas. Next is local initiatives. In addition to national policies, Vietnam allows for local initiatives to support free education. This permits flexibility in addressing specific regional needs and challenges. Next is Law on Right to Education of Ethnic Minorities. This specific law guarantees the right to education for ethnic minorities, ensuring access to education for communities that might face unique linguistic or cultural barriers. Next is Policy on the Guarantee of Child Education. This broad policy focuses on ensuring that all children can access free basic education and reinforces the overall commitment to elementary education access. In Philippines, tackles free education through targeted legislation focuses on specific groups, tertiary students and students with disabilities. Vietnam takes a broader approach by integrating the right to education into its constitution and supplementing this with various targeted programs, local initiatives, and policies tailored to the needs of specific communities. Both systems aims to improve access to education, but their approaches differ greatly. Next, we'll be comparing enrollment rates in the Philippines and Vietnam across different educational levels. In Philippines, in primary, 93.41% gross enrollment rate. This means that 93.41% of children of primary school age were enrolled in primary school. A high gross enrollment rate generally shows greater overall access to primary education for children of these age ranges. Next is higher education. 18,939,568 total student in 2023, 73.2% in public institution. This demonstrates a large number of students enrolled in higher education, but a significant portion, 73.2%, attend public institution. The high total enrollment reflects overall access at the higher educational level, even if a significant reliance on state institutions might suggest constraints on private options. Next is out of school, approximately 11 million children and youth. This alarmingly high number indicates a large segment of child and youth not enrolled in any formal education system. This represents a significant challenge in ensuring equitable access to education across the population. Next is secondary in private, 23.92% of total enrollment. A considerably portion of secondary education takes place in private institutions. This might suggest a demand for private option and potentially increase educational costs. Next is kindergarten, 76.45% net enrollment rate 2018 to 2019. The net enrollment rate for kindergarten, representing the percentage of children of kindergarten age actually enrolled, was lower compared to the primary level. This may highlight potential gaps in access to early childhood education. In Vietnam, first, tertiary, 42.22% enrollment rate in 2022. This figure demonstrates that percentage of the eligible population enrolled in tertiary or in higher education. The rate is significantly lower than the cross-enrollment rate for primary and significantly lower than overall higher education enrollment in the Philippines. Next is primary, 1,022% gross enrollment and 98.4% net enrollment. Vietnam's primary enrollment rate exceeds 100% gross, which may indicate multiple enrollment by student or other counting anomalies. The net enrollment sits significantly higher than the gross enrollment rate in the Philippines. Both measurements suggest a far greater participation in primary education compared to the Philippines. Next is lower secondary, 95.6% net enrollment. Similarly to primary, Vietnam demonstrates consistently high net enrollment rates at the lower secondary level, emphasizing a smoother transition from primary to secondary education compared to the Philippines. Next is upper secondary, 79.9% net enrollment. The enrollment rate decreased at the upper secondary level in Vietnam, but compared to the Philippines, it remains significantly higher, representing greater access. Vietnam demonstrates marked higher enrollment rates across all levels of education, except for tertiary education, when compared to the Philippines. This is particularly notable in their significantly higher primary enrollment and significantly lower number of out-of-school youth when compared to the Philippines. The Philippines, despite having high overall higher education enrollments, grapples with a substantial number of out-of-school children and youth, highlighted a significant gaps in access, potentially due to socio-economic realities. Next, we will compare dropout rates in the Philippines and Vietnam. Dropout rates indicate the percentage of students who leave school before completing their studies. In Philippines, first, higher education, 39% national dropout rate up to 93.4% in some regions. A significant percentage of students in the Philippines leave higher education before graduation, with the rate reaching an alarming 93.4% in certain regions. This highlights a major challenge in retaining students in post-secondary education. Next is BARM, higher dropout rate at 93.4%. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao has the highest dropout rate in the Philippines. This suggests that specific regional factors, potentially socioeconomic challenges, and conflict are significantly impacting educational attainment. Next is elementary, secondary dropout rates also increasing. though lower than higher education. While lower than higher education, dropout rates at elementary and secondary levels are also increasing. This demonstrates a systematic issue necessitating attention across multiple educational levels. In Vietnam, primary 98% completion rate. A very high percentage of students in Vietnam complete primary education. This indicates strong retention at the foundational level of education. Next is lower secondary, 86.8% completion rate. The completion rate remains high at the lower secondary level. High completion rates across primary and lower secondary education highlight a strong in educational access and retention. Next is upper secondary, 58.1% completion rate. There is a noticeable decrease in completion rate at the upper secondary level. This may indicate challenges related to transitioning to higher education choices or other factors impacting students at this transition point. Next is regional variation. Highest in River Delta, 76.5%, lowest in Central Highlands, 31%. Significant regional differences affect completion rate in Vietnam. This necessitates a focus on understanding and addressing the specific challenges in various regions. Next is ethnic minorities. Higher dropout rates due to language barriers and other factors. Ethnic minority students experience higher dropout rates than the national average due to language barriers and other potential socio-cultural factors. This brings attention to the impact of inequality and the importance of inclusive education. The Philippines faces considerably higher dropout rates, particularly alarming in higher education and a specific region in Barn. Vietnam shows significantly higher completion rates at primary and lower secondary levels, suggesting strong retention at these critical stages. However, Vietnam still experiences considerable regional disparity in upper secondary education, completion rates, and higher dropout rates among ethnic minorities. Next, we'll discuss access to education for marginalized group in Philippines and Vietnam. In Philippines, first is indigenous people face geographical, economic, and discriminatory barriers. Lack of birth certificates limit access to services, government initiatives, WGP, TARA, BASA, SLP, Purpose, Kalahi, CIDSS aims to improve access. Indigenous communities in the Philippines face significantly challenge in accessing education due to geographical remoteness, poverty, and discrimination. The lack of birth certificate furtherly hinders access to essential services including education. However, several government programs are designed to address these challenges and improve educational opportunities for indigenous people. Next is person with disabilities. RA 11650 guarantees free basic education. 20% discount policy and ACA provides support. Republic Act 11650 ensures free basic education for students with disabilities. Additional support is provided through a 20% discount policy on educational expenses and the ACA program, which likely refers to financial assistance program. Next is other marginalized group. Government program address various needs. Various government programs aim to address the specific educational needs of other marginalized groups in Philippines, such as those facing poverty or living in remote areas. This program attempt to improve access and inclusivity. Next is low-income Filipinos. ACA, Purpose, Kalahi, and Free Tertiary Education, RA 10931, offer assistance. Low-income Filipinos received support through various programs, including AKAP, the 4-piece Conditional Cash Transfers Program, Kalahi, and the Free Tertiary Education provided under RA 10931. This demonstrates an effort to address economic barriers to education. In Vietnam, ethnic minorities face barriers to social program education and basic services. Initiative focus on inclusion and empowerment. Similar to the Philippines, ethnic minorities in Vietnam experience challenges in accessing educational and social services. Initiative aims specifically in increasing inclusion and empowering these communities. Next is women. Disadvantaged, particularly ethnic minority women. Initiative focus on economic participation and land rights. Women in Vietnam, particularly those from ethnic minority groups, face societal disadvantage that limit their opportunities. Initiative address economic empowerment and land rights to improve their overall status, which in turn influences their access to education. Next is person with disabilities. Initiative promotes inclusive education and legal aid. Vietnam implements measures to promote inclusive education and legal aid for persons with disabilities. This aims to create more supportive learning environmental and ensure equal rights. Both the Philippines and Vietnam recognize the needs to address educational disparities among marginalized groups. The Philippines primarily relies on targeted programs and legislation to support specific groups, while Vietnam addresses these issues with a broader focus on inclusion and empowerment initiatives. Both approaches grapple with systemic inequalities but employ different strategies to tackle the challenges of geographical barriers, economic limitations, and social discrimination that hinder equitable access to education.
Chow Boy Sang Moy Ngoy Ngoy Ten Toyla Edmar S. Almonte Hindang Singsong Tai Barangay Kiburak Tenpo Naga. Assessment and Accreditation. National Exam and Standardized Test. For the Philippines, we have INCAI, which is National Career Assessment Exam. It helps Filipino high school students to choose suitable career. Next, we have PEP, Philippine Educational Placement Test. It is a test for adults who didn't finish high school to get a high school diploma. And next, we have a National Achievement Test or NAT. NAT is to assess their mastery of basic skills of grade 3 to 6 in subjects like reading, math, and science. It helps evaluate the effectiveness of elementary education and identify areas. Next is ELNA, Early Language Literacy and Numeracy. ELNA is administered at the end of grade 3, which is typically used for grade 1 to 10 who are learning English as a second language. It helps assess their proficiency in English and guides teachers in providing appropriate language support. BEA or Basic Education Exit Assessment, administered by the Department of Education for grade 12 students. So this test is aimed to determine if the students are meeting the prescribed learning standards for the senior high school curriculum. It is also assess the understanding of the student in core subjects like English, Filipino, math, science, and social studies. It is also helps to determine their readiness for higher education or the workforce. Next is the PISA, TIMSS, and CPLM. These are the international and regional large-scale assessment used to measure students' learning outcomes and provide data for educational policy and practice. These tests help countries understand their students excel and where they need to improvement. For Vietnam, they have a National High School Examination or NSHE. This taken by student grade 12 at the end of their high school education. So this test is crucial for Vietnamese students as determine their eligibility for higher education. Next is we have the PAASCO or the Philippine Accrediting Association of Schools, Colleges, and Universities. So this PAASCO evaluates schools based on their quality education, facilities, and overall performance. Next is the ISO 9001:2015. ISO is an international organization for standard that helps organizations or institutions to improve their quality management system. Example, this is the CBSUA ISO certification journey began in 2018 with ISO 9001:2008 in Pili campus. In 2019, they achieved ISO 9001:2015 certification. In Vietnam, they have the Ministry of Education and Training is responsible for all aspects of education in the country. They aim to ensure the quality education for all Vietnamese citizens. Next is the international benchmarking. From Philippines, Philippines has a high literacy rate, meaning most people can read and write. However, they score low in PISA. This is because of struggling with more complex problem solving and critical thinking skills of Filipino students. For example of this is the CBSU actively seeks collaborations with other universities and organizations to share knowledge and best practices. In Vietnam, consistently scores high on PISA and often exceeding the average of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries. This suggests that Vietnamese students demonstrate strong academic skills and perform well in international comparisons, particularly in areas like reading, math, and science. Now let's move to the global competitiveness, performance, and global ranking. In the Philippines indicates a mid-range position in terms of innovation and competitiveness. The Global Innovation Index places the Philippines at 53rd ranking, suggesting a moderate level of innovation capacity. While in Vietnam global ranking reflects a strong position in terms of soft power and overall country performance. Their ranking in 47th in the best countries list by US News and World Report indicates a possible perception of Vietnam's appeal and reputation. This ranking suggests that Vietnam is effectively leveraging its cultural heritage, economic development, and diplomatic efforts to gain positive recognition internationally. Next, we have contribution to international academic research. For the Philippines participate in international organizations and initiatives such as those related to the ASEAN, fostering a more integrated and collaborative research environment. For example, UP's Office of International Linkage facilitates academic and research collaboration with universities worldwide, including student and faculty exchange programs, joint research projects, and network participation. While in Vietnam universities and research institutions are actively engaging in collaborations with international counterparts, leading to joint research projects and publications. Next is partnership with international institutions for the Philippines. The Philippines has partnered with Hungary through the Stipendium Hungaricum program, offering scholarships for Filipino students to study in Hungary. For example, CBCA has partnered with universities in Japan, such as the University of Tsukuba, for student exchange programs under the ASEAN International Mobility for Students program. In Vietnam, Vietnam is seeking a rise in joint degree programs with international universities, making their students more competitive in the global job market. These collaborations are helping to improve the quality of education and provide students with a more global perspective. Let's move to the best practices. Philippines. Alternative Learning System or ALS provides education to marginalized groups including out-of-school youth, adults, children with special needs, and indigenous peoples. Next is the Compulsory Education or the NSTP promotes nationalism and patriotism through required service training. Next, Language emphasize on teaching Filipino and English. Next, DepEd RISE program improves and utilize educational technology to enhance teaching and learning. Next is integration of local history and culture. Instills national pride and identity. Next is the presence of vocational education or TESDA. Strengthens skills of workers for workforce readiness. To conclude, Vietnam's education system demonstrates strengths and funding, infrastructure, STEM education, and international benchmarking. While the Philippines can learn from Vietnam's best practices to improve its education system, particularly by increasing investment, prioritizing STEM and vocational training, and fostering a student-centered approach. By implementing these recommendations, the Philippines can create a more equitable, effective, and globally competitive education system.